Hey guys, I want to let you know that our new book, The Health Babe's Guide to Balancing Your Hormones, is out in bookstores and on Amazon now. We try to break down the hormones for you in a really easy to understand format and make all the information very digestible. We have some really good recipes to support your hormone levels and some other great tips and tricks you can do at home. So go get your copy now. So let's welcome Noelle to the show. Noelle and I are friends. We go way back. I love her. I love her podcast, and I really, really love her message. So we're going to talk a lot about some things that we don't really hear people saying that much these days. And I just love your viewpoint on all this. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Becky. And the funny thing is how we met is that you were just like, you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I've got a message and I think I'd be great on your podcast. And you were like,
she's amazing.
And
This
I was
is
like,
what she does.
yeah, you would be. When can you come on?
I have no
so
shame.
We just, start talking from there. And it was meant to be.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know Noelle's podcast, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts just because there's so many. I listen to your podcast all the time. It's really, really good. So we love it. And we'll kind of lead people to that and everything else in the show notes. But let's talk about kind of body image. This is kind of what the topic of today is. So we know as women, we are under an insane amount of pressure to look good and, look like we're doing everything right and all that stuff. So how can we protect ourselves from the pressure, and how can we protect our peace with all this?
Gosh, how much time do you have? So, it's something that I am kind of developing my viewpoint around on a daily basis because it's constantly changing, and the internet and social media has just transformed the way we view others, but also the way we view ourselves. We are constantly comparing. We are constantly looking at other people and what they're doing, and then evaluating, do we measure up? Am I able to keep up with that? Well, she can do that and she has kids. Why can't I do that? And it's become incredibly toxic, especially in the diet and fitness space. Now, you, I surround myself and I only follow the people who sort of, aren't part of that culture. But then you go to your little Discover tab or whatever, you might just Google something. And the stuff that comes up is so toxic, and it is completely centered around one thing, and that is weight loss and the number on the scale. And so even though there's been a lot of pushback in, I think, more recent years, I mean, nobody was talking about body image, not like 7 to 8 years ago when I came out with a few things, nobody was even talking about that as an important aspect of health. Now we have so much more of that, actually recognizing the importance of physical, mental, and emotional health, how that all works together. I still feel like it's so pervasive, and it is so hard for women, 20s, 30s, 40s, all of us, especially, aging, millennials. I'm an aging millennial. I'm getting, to that age where you start to see a lot of physical changes that you're not really ready for. And you have to decide, how are you going to move forward? Am I going to move forward in a way that is constantly shaming myself and going on this roller coaster of dieting and really trying to pursue, am I going to try to keep going after the last 5 or 10 pounds, or am I going to take this other path, which is, I want to pursue health. I want to pursue, movement and nutrition in a way that actually supports my physiology, even though that might not get the number on the scale to move. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of things that we do that are health supportive that actually don't move the number on the scale at all. And there's a whole lot of things that you can do that move the number on the scale that are not healthy at all.
Exactly.
And that's how I spent I would say probably first 7 to 10 years of adulthood, was really pursuing only pursuing the things that would get the number on the scale to move, and constantly evaluating myself and my success and the success of my workout program and the success of, controlling my food. All of that was evaluated based on, did I get the number on the scale to move today? And it became so incredibly toxic. And that just sets women up for having a terrible relationship with their bodies. So while I'm not against weight loss by any means, I'm not against body changes. Like, I'm proactively trying to change my body right now. Like, I love lifting and I'd like to get more definition. Like, I want to look more muscular, and that's totally fine and normal. What I think is the problem as a society is that we have elevated thinness and getting the number on the scale to move above everything else. And as a result, most women end up tanking their mental and emotional health, and sometimes their physical health, hormones, cortisol, adrenal function, thyroid health. Like, all of those things are things that take a nosedive when we are chronically starving ourselves, let's be honest, and overexerting ourselves. And a lot of, like, I'm sure a lot of people listening are active and they've already got a lot going on. They're mothers, so we have to really look at our lives through that lens. And it's hard. It's really hard to curate ourselves in a way that, like, protects our peace and that we don't get so wrapped up in that. It really is hard. And so some of the tips that I always give to women who are like, how do I pursue protecting my health, mental health, like improving body image? Because most of us were just raised to hate our bodies. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
And really and it gets harder and harder. But then the number one thing that I recommend is, first, making sure that you take a lot of that stuff out of your feed. Like, follow people who are actually speaking to health and not speaking to constant weight loss. Like, there's a way that you can pursue health and pursue the things that you want to, the goals for yourself, whether it is you have a chronic illness or you do want to, improve your stamina and your strength. Like, there's definitely a way to do that. And there's a lot of people who aren't focused on that. But honestly, that's easier said than done. So
it is. Yeah.
Well, that's why we never talk about weight loss ever.
I know.
Like,
It's hard.
I think I've written one article and it was really just like attaching histamine to having, an issue, why, like, inflammation might cause you to have more trouble losing weight. But in general, we know, there's so much to weight and why some people carry more weight than others. And so we never, like, advertise, we're going to make you lose weight. Like, no, we
it
want
may
you to
be
get
a result,
healthy.
right? A result of lowering inflammation and balancing hormones, right? But
the goal is to be healthy. And that's how we feel, for sure.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of those times, I think one of the really important things to note too, like, if you're struggling with your body image, is when you start to feel shame about yourself, note why that is. So usually it is somebody marketing something. It's somebody, marketers telling us that something is wrong and that we need to lose weight. So whether it's, you've got this cellulite, I've got this cream that's going to fix it. Look at how unsightly this is, to, like, oh, you should be, are you struggling to lose the last 10 pounds? Which, by the way, what is that anyway? Like,
when is it the last 10?
When is it exactly?
Never,
what is that?
It's never not the last 10, right?
Or like, look at this woman. She's so happy because she got in size whatever jean, or she got back to her jeans in like high school, which, by the way, like, you were a child. You don't need to like, so true. We don't have, like, so many women, but so many women are fixated. Their whole world view is fixated on, like, what was I when I was 18? You were a child. Like, that's why your jeans fit the way that they did. Right. So, like, as we age, we have to be able to recognize that stuff for what it is, that marketing for what it is, and say, that's not selling me health. That's trying to make me feel bad about myself, which then shame is such a strong motivator.
Oh,
It will make you do anything. And look, I've been there, right? But, like, it will make you hit buy. If you think this thing's going to have the answer, you're going to hit buy. So a lot of times it's horrible marketing. Well, it's great marketing. It's good from a
their perspective.
It's good. It's effective. But we have to be able to decipher and understand that.
It's also all the airbrushing too.
The filters,
the airbrushing, the whatever, the different things you can do with these apps. It's like makes and everyone's body's starting to look really kind of weird.
Yeah.
And like all the same. And then it's like it makes everyone else feel like, well, why doesn't my body look? Well, because you didn't have a $25,000 surgery. That's why it look like that. But besides that, like, even without that, like the cellulite thing, everybody's airbrushed. You can't compare your cellulite to the girl on Instagram. She's not going to post her cellulite. I mean, And
Exactly.
God bless the ones that do, because
Yes. Normalize it.
Yeah, normalize
Cellulite is normal.
it. It really
Yeah.
is.
We all have some.
I
Yeah.
sure do.
Me too.
I've literally had it since I was like 12, like
Yeah.
stretch, like I have stretch marks from when I like had a growth spurt at age 12. And I
Yep.
remember feeling so bad about that as a teen, which I was like an active teen, and like all around my legs and my hips, I had, stretch marks. I'm like, oh my gosh, so bad. Why did I think that that was so bad?
Yeah.
Like
I
it's just
know.
your body adapting and like how amazing that our skin moves. But it's those little messages that we even get as teens that last with us through adulthood. Like I
Mhm.
shouldn't have any cellulite, or this is unsightly, or I shouldn't have these stretch marks. I need to fix this. Like, how do I get rid of it? And I understand that, like, at some point, yeah, maybe it might be something you want to change or you want to improve. And that's totally fine too. If you want to improve your lymphatic flow, go for it. Like, that's awesome. Like, definitely support your lymphatic flow.
Exactly.
But
Right.
if we're feeling constant shame about the way something looks, when literally like 95% of women have it, the rest just don't have it yet.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's a problem. It's obviously society or marketing telling us it's wrong so that they can sell us a product to fix it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. For sure.
So what are some ways for listeners, to assess their health without the scale?
Yeah, I love talking about this because I feel like it gets us to what we all really want, which is
Mhm.
like we want to see marketable improvements in our health so that we actually like feel better and move better and can pick up our kids and do all the like whatever, run outside and play and do all the things that we want to do in life. Like that improves our quality of life. And before I get into this, like one of the things that a lot of people assume is that when you get down to the number on the scale that you want to get to, like you're going to be finally happy, right?
Nope.
Like
Never
it's
works that way.
finally like I'm here. And so many women spend so much of their life just trying, gosh, I wish I could just get there. Gosh, I wish I could just get there. And then you get there and then it's still not good enough.
Yeah.
So your health is not a destination. It is something that will change throughout your life. And when we have that shift in perspective, we're not enslaved to, I've got to get to this number or I've got to see the number on the scale move. We can instead say, oh, wow, I have more energy. Like I'm doing the right things. Like I even had somebody reach out to me once, which just totally broke my heart, which was like, I'm doing this. I was really working on this, doing an awesome workout plan. I was having more energy, but like after 3 weeks, I got on the scale and the number I had like gone up a pound. And so I stopped doing everything because I felt like it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And that's the way that most people have been conditioned. So when we can remove ourselves from that and say, oh, wow, my improved energy and strength, like that's working, that
Yes.
means it's actually working and it's doing something. So, I personally really like energy levels. I feel like so many women, as like the first biomarker, I feel like so many women are struggling with fatigue, and that can be for a lot of reasons. Just life stress, all those things. But if your energy levels are improving, it's likely because you have reduced stress in some way in your life, and or you're moving more and you're getting more sunshine and you're doing all the right things. You're
And
moving in the right
eating better
direction.
foods and all
Right.
that. Yeah.
Eating sufficient nutrients, minerals, all those things.
Right.
Mental health is a really important one. So, I mean, I think most adults at this point struggle with some sort of anxiety or depression or worry. And it's unfortunately something that, going back to social media, research has showed the more time you spend on social media, the more depressed you are,
Yeah.
which is so
Yeah.
sad. Because a lot of lonely people are spending more time on social media, and that just kind of, it's a cycle. But if you have less anxiety, less maybe, spinning in your head, especially when you're trying to go to sleep, you feel a little bit more rested, that's an improved biomarker. And, exercise alone really improves those biomarkers, those mental health biomarkers, not to mention like getting out in the sun, doing some community, having community support, all those things that we talk about. That's really important.
And
for health.
laughing.
Yes,
right.
having fun.
Yes.
We had
having fun.
Yes.
We had some interview or something the other day. We were afterwards laughing so hard. And I'm like, I feel like I just had a session with a trauma therapist. I mean, I got so much out just from like the stress that was built up. We were like reset. We're like, yeah, ready to go now. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. It's like a dopamine high. Yeah,
it is. We were crying. I'm like, oh, I did some abs with that.
Yes, laughing at core work, laughing.
Yes, so true. Well, when you talk about the scale, I always tell the patient, I'm like, don't look at your scale. I'm like, I have no idea how much I
weigh. And I don't get on it because
it does mess with you mentally. And there's so much that goes with that. Like, there's reasons you gain weight. It could be that you're gaining muscle. Like it's
exactly.
Don't weigh yourself. Like, I really literally don't weigh yourself. In my opinion, I years ago, maybe I weighed myself, and that's the last time. I don't care because I don't, it will mess with you psychologically for sure. So, and even the strongest
people, even if you say, I'm good.
Not really.
I know. Okay. And then I'll mention the last few. This is, of course, one you know a lot about, which is thyroid numbers. I actually have a full thyroid panel, see what your thyroid numbers are doing.
For sure.
Digestion is a huge one. So many people don't actually use this as a biomarker of health, but like if you go from like being constipated constantly or loose stools all the time, which can be caused by a lot of different things, but it can be stress, it can be microbiome dysfunction, all those things, infections. But if you go to having like normal poops, like that's a huge win. That is a good biomarker shift, even if the scale has not shifted. Inflammatory markers, I think, are important to look at. Like, again, that is like your core health. Like, is what you're doing improving your inflammatory markers? And if it is, then like, good. You're doing great, right?
So good. Yeah.
And the last one is just hormone health overall. And that can be so many different things. But in general, a lot of women, this is the number one problem that I see, which is women think they're doing all the things that are healthy. Restricting calories, working out, doing a lot of HIIT training and high intensity work. And they end up tanking, their hormonal health. So, cortisol becomes more chronic. Workouts are stress, y'all. And if you're constantly, doing and especially high intensity work, when you're also like a mom or an entrepreneur or doing all these things, like it's not going to work out for you. It's just high cortisol is going to, it impacts like your endocrine system in such profound ways, low progesterone, high testosterone, which I see a lot, we saw a lot of this like physiological shift where a lot of CrossFit women were struggling with high testosterone all of a sudden. And when you're under eating in that phase, which is what so many fitness experts recommend, drop your calories, increase your exercise, like it is just a recipe for disaster.
Or stress on top of it.
Adrenal dysfunction. Yeah. I mean, all of that. So it's on top of the stress we already deal with on a day-to-day basis, which I do feel like has reached a new level. Like maybe every generation said this, but I do feel like with 2020, with the influx of the internet and social media and, in our culture, we just have this whole productivity, that's what you got to do. You got to be productive. You got to keep going. You've got to be at the.
It's always in your face.
Yeah, but being a boss babe, right?
Always
like boss bitch. Like
your kids have to be in. Like
every sport.
You need to be high. Sports, high producers, academic. Like you're taking care of other humans while also trying to like change the world and make sure you're involved with causes and speaking out when everybody else is speaking out. Like,
oh my gosh, yes,
too much, right? So like the expectations are like so high, but like
stress thinking about it.
Just one of those things is enough.
It's so true. It's so true. You think about it, like, holy crap. If you really sit down and think about all the stuff that we have to do, even as women, right? And moms, and it's insane.
Yeah.
I know. It really is.
I had a friend on social media say to me one time during one of, the movements, I'm not going to specify, but she's like, I think you need to make a statement. And I was like, no,
it's too stressful.
I'm not doing that. I'm like, listen, I'm here to educate people on histamine and like whatever functional medicine. I have enough going on in my life. I'm not going to make some statement and have 75,000 comments of people's opinions about what I said. No, thank you.
I know.
Like, I won't read stuff like that on social media. I won't participate in it. I don't do anything like that. I think people know where I stand about things, just the way I am. And I don't need to make like, this isn't what my platform is. Like, so I think you have to be really careful about stuff like that. And because
protecting your peace.
You do.
Like,
protecting your peace, like
putting that boundary
yeah,
up.
I'm here to
all about
tell
boundaries,
about how to be healthy. And that's where I am, where things end for me, like, you know, in front of the public. And I think it's really important too, what you said about social media. Like, it's not that social media is a bad thing. It's that what is being fed to you through social media, you have to really know how to navigate that. So like, I don't spend much time on social media. I actually don't have any personal social media accounts. But when I am on there, I'm on there to learn or to laugh. Those are my two like prerequisites for a post I'll read. If you can make me laugh or make me learn, I'm down. But anything else, I'm out of there. I don't want to know. I don't want to watch a bunch of people argue. I don't want to watch someone make you feel bad about the way you look. Like, it's just not, no thanks. So I think you can navigate that. You just have to know how, kind of.
It's interesting that you're saying that. Now I'm really thinking about it, because TikTok is a whole new thing.
Oh my gosh.
People on there are mean.
They're not the most friendly.
No, they're not.
And I don't post, but I have been engaging with content or just swiping and seeing what comes up, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing with TikTok is it's actually really a good generator of content. It'll see what you've engaged with, and then it'll keep feeding you that. And I tell you what it started feeding me in the beginning was arguments in public, arguments between flight attendants and people flying, and police officers, and like all this, right? So then, or like shoppers argue, like, and so, and even just like, one thing that's really popular in our culture is really obsessed with is like, murder cases and confessions and all those things, right? And
it's all in your face all the time.
All in your face. So you're swiping and you're seeing it. And it's honestly like it's things that we would not, as normal humans back in the day, we would never have been bombarded with so much conflict and hatred and just like, you know, crime, like in your face, like literally feeding it to you all the time. And it does. And I'm like, how do I tell, like, I'm just going to
start watching comedians.
Stop telling me this stuff. Yeah. Like, I don't want to see this. It's not actually healthy for people to constantly engage with this content. Like, it adds to your stress burden.
Some people like really love that. I mean, I've watched influencers say something really controversial on purpose, and they're like, all right, go. And that's they're like, what they're right in their thing. And I'm like, oh, I would rather die than have that on my feed. So for me, like, if I go on TikTok, it's all comedians. That's the only
thing. I love that.
That and narcissists, or people talking about narcissistic abuse. I'm like,
wait, didn't you shared a clip, right? Yeah. You shared a clip. I think you shared a narcissist clip, right?
Yep.
Yes, you interviewed somebody. That's why.
Did. That's why I was like,
she likes narcissists.
Yeah. I won't.
That's a whole other podcast.
But I've had.
You obviously have other narcissists in your life.
Had some interactions around that. So it apparently it knows inside my brain, because it knows that I like to laugh, and also that I need a little coaching on
mine's like golden doodles.
Crystal is like, the Care Bears are back with a new episode.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's get back to what we're talking about. All right, so let's talk about actionable tips. So we're talking about improving your views on body image. This is important, really important. So how do we do that?
It's a lot. I think one of the things that is really hard is that you kind of have to change your view about health in general. And so obviously all those things we talked about is one of those things that you just have to constantly have on cycle. You have to be able to see and recognize when you're being marketed to, when you are, when it's attempted shame. And also, like, when maybe people they don't have bad intentions, when you're scrolling and you see somebody post a mirror selfie, like, why do you feel bad about yourself? And is that valid? So we have to be able to talk through some of those things and almost coach ourselves
Yeah.
out of that. And a lot of it is just constantly listening to things like, the things I'm saying, like, bringing us back to reality about what is health and what do I want for my life? And is losing the last 5 or 10 pounds or really pursuing this number on the scale, is that worth it? What's it going to get me? Is it going to make me happy? What is, what do I want to achieve in this world? So that's number one, having that. And it's not to say that you're never going to struggle. Like I still do. I still have moments in my closet where I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm postpartum. I had 2 kids and my youngest is 3. And it's always a struggle of like, can I wear that now? And is that bad or good? And well, you don't have to worry about that. Like, it's cool. You've got some new jeans too. Like it's just kind of talking yourself through those things. Another thing that I like to really encourage people with is to make sure that you understand that food doesn't have morality. So a lot of times while we know that certain foods are, more advantageous for us, they're more nutritious and others are not. What the diet like market loves to do is try to like make you feel bad for eating something, tell you that this food is bad and you never should pursue it. And so it kind of creates an obsession, right, with food. Specifically, let's say it's just, whatever, a hamburger, or let's just even say like meat. Meat has been demonized for a really long time. Yeah. Hamburger or French, whatever it is. Sometimes, what was it for? It was a lot of stuff for me. It was like peanut butter. Like that was like the thing for me that was like bad food, like too much, too many calories in a scoop. And once you kind of like get into that mindset, the food and what you're trying to avoid literally takes over your mind.
Yeah.
And that's all you think about. And then you get into that relationship where you're like, I'm trying to be good. I just don't want to, I want to stay away
good.
from
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Trying to be good
or bad, good or bad. It's just like ick.
Yes,
Right.
right. And we say these things constantly in front of our kids, FYI, and they are picking up on it immediately. So they are learning, am I being a good person or am I being a bad person based on what I'm eating, which is not a real thing. And so then they start to identify, well, am I a good person? I shouldn't eat that. That's bad. And that's kind of the world view that they have. So we have to watch our language. But also really talk, make sure that we're working through some of those things mentally and understanding like, okay, food does not have morality. I can actually eat a hamburger or peanut butter or whatever, and it's not a big deal. It's literally just peanut butter. Like it's fine. And I get it. If you have a peanut allergy, it's not fine. Don't eat that.
Yes.
But
that's not the message.
What I'm trying to get at is it's when you are, oh my gosh, for me, it was actually then when I went paleo, it was like almond butter, which almond butter to me is really gross. Like it tastes like chalk. But for some reason I was obsessed with it because it was like I tried to avoid it. So once I was able to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, let's just make decisions about what foods make you feel really good. And if you want a scoop of peanut butter, like have it, but then just enjoy it instead of like trying to resist. Yeah.
Yes.
And then eat literally a half a jar. Like what's the point? So that's another thing, is just kind of improving your relationship with food. And then lastly, of course, who are your friends and what do they value? Who are you following on social media? And if stuff trigger it, this is what I say, a lot of people have good intentions, and you could be following somebody who might be a little bit of a trigger for you or seems to be really aesthetically focused. And if that's not what you want for your life, then you can unfollow for like, you just do it. It's fine. You're not going to miss out on anything. It's cool. And really make sure that you're following people who kind of support the way that you want to exist in the world and live in the world. And also that has to do too with your friends. Like there's a big culture out there of women who are trying to do too much. I have people like that in my life where you see it and you're like, I just want to get you out of that. But that's me, because like I see it and that's what I do for a living. But you see them just be on this rat race of constantly trying to achieve more and work out more and control their calories more. And you see these comments come out constantly. And so, boundaries, sometimes it's somebody in your family that's criticizing you or your body or your food choices, and those can be triggers. And so we do have to set healthy boundaries in order to maintain or protect our peace, protect our mental and emotional health while we work on our own personal relationship. And then there's some other things that you can do, like just changing like mind mapping or kind of changing your brain and how, like, if you've had this view of, or even this like fear and anxiety around food for so long, some things like tapping or, kind of working through those fears. I know acupuncture, a lot of those things can help you process through a lot of those almost like stress and fear reactions that you have around food or around wearing a bathing suit and stuff like that. So, and of course, therapy.
Yeah.
Yes. These are all really, really good points.
They really are.
Why does exercise improve your health, whether or not you lose weight or not? This is a really good topic that needs to be discussed.
I love this. And I think it's such a huge mental shift for people. Like, it's an aha moment. For a very long time, even to this day, it's so interesting. If you kind of look at the history of fitness, it used to be like a lot of dudes lifting weights in the gym. Then we went into this like aerobic culture, and it quickly turned into like exercises for losing weight. Like, it was never about like, let's build strength and all and get stronger, until more recently, which has been really cool to see. But still, the most pervasive, thought process is like, I want to get involved with exercise because I need to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of gets us back into that tailspin of, is this working? Am I losing weight? What's the number on the scale and all of that? So once we can actually look at how exercise improves our health outside of that, there's actually a really amazing study that was done. And that's kind of where this tagline comes from. And they looked at people who were on this like overweight. So they hadn't technically on the BMI scale, they were overweight, and they got into an exercise program. They were exercising regularly. And many of them at the end of the study had not lost any weight yet. And that's fine. They do, or they don't, maybe they will, or they won't after an extended period of time. But what they noticed was that there was so many changes, physiological changes, that massively improved their health overall. And so the whole idea was like, wow, exercise improves your health whether you lose weight or not. And all these people were like, what? That's insane. And to me, it's like, that, of course it does, right? So like, what does the research say? First of all cause mortality, which AKA means death. Like, if you exercise alone is associated with longer life expectancy, even at relatively low activity levels. I recently did a bunch, like a deep dive into, do pets positively impact your health? Is it because everybody says, oh, pets help you live longer? They actually think that pets help you live longer because you're taking your pet out to walk.
Exactly. Yes. You're walking them and moving your body, taking those exercise snacks.
I mean, a small walk with your dog, whether it's a few times a week or daily, that can improve your life expectancy. So that's how powerful exercise is, just for all causes of death, period. I mean, that could be enough for us, right? But I think another one that I think is really pertinent is respiratory function. Like, exercise has a massive improvement on our lung health, our aerobic and anaerobic capacity, which means, and why we've seen a lot of this research and these studies happen, which is like, if you get sick with the flu or a respiratory, popular respiratory illness, you have a better chance of surviving, and you have less complications overall if you have exercised previously. And I think what they looked at maybe was like exercise in the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
So you exercise, you had better outcomes.
With COVID too, like a lot of people I had pneumonia when I had COVID.
That helped you.
And I didn't really feel like, I kind of knew my lungs were being a little weird, but it wasn't like a giant thing as far as what affected me with COVID. It wasn't like I couldn't breathe or anything like that, because I get a lot of exercise. And I'm sure that helped for sure.
Oh, 100% it did. I mean, at least that's what the research says. So, cardiovascular disease. I mean, we don't need necessarily studies to tell us this, but improvements in heart disease and stroke and all of those things, like those markers drop dramatically, significantly. And it's, we say that like, oh, improve your heart, work out. But if you actually look at the research, which is like, wow, it robustly is associated with, lower risk of stroke and heart disease and all these things. Like, it's really profound, given that like most people, this is like a huge killer in our society.
Yeah.
Anxiety and depression, mental health, exercise is scientifically proven actually as a mood booster. Like, it's decreases
100%.
symptoms of both depression and anxiety. One of my other favorite ones is insulin sensitivity, mostly because so many people get hung up on carbs when it comes to insulin. Like, I just posted yesterday on Facebook, which is a whole different crowd than the Instagram crowd.
It is.
But it's I posted just an old meme, which was something like, carbs are not bad for you, and which I do believe. But I believe that some people are fine without carbs, and that's fine too,
Yeah,
but in general, carbs are not bad for you. And I have, of course, the well, unless you have, the whatever,
They just-
six pack on it.
Yeah.
But yes. But one of the comments that got me, that I really wanted to respond to, but I didn't, because, protect your peace, was like, unless you have insulin sensitivity, and then they're definitely bad for you. And I was like, not really, because like there are so many reasons or ways that we can improve insulin sensitivity that has nothing to do with the amount of fruit that we're eating, like lowering inflammation, sleeping more, and exercise alone.
Stress.
And reducing your stress greatly improves insulin sensitivity. And like, you can still wake up and eat your potato or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like take all that out. So anyway, a single bout of exercise can increase insulin sensitivity for at least 16 hours post exercise. So that really impacts, how the food you're consuming throughout the day is being used. And I think that that's kind of a big deal. There's something called excess post exercise oxygen consumption. It's called EPOC. And it's the result of, like, especially when it rises, you have more EPOC if you do like higher intensity workouts, and when I say intensity, I don't mean like you're doing burpees, over and over again. Intensity is also strength training. So, doing a heavy lift is a high intensity movement. So when you strength train specifically, you get higher of an EPOC in comparison to something like cardio, and that rises your oxygen consumption, and your metabolism actually increases thereafter. And so has really profound effects on our overall metabolic function. My other, I keep saying all these are my favorite, but this is, I think, the most important for our generation, which is bone density.
Yeah.
So exercising regularly drastically improves bone density and also, of course, muscle mass. Now, I don't know about you, but I keep hearing of even young women are struggling with osteoporosis and struggling with osteopenia. And I think, truthfully, I think it's because of so many women go out and do a bunch of cardio and they undereat. And they're adding all this stress to their life.
Yeah, they're on birth control.
And they're on
go on
birth
control.
And that is how the normal modern woman is existing.
Yep.
And my grandmother lived till she was 89. She died a little bit before her 90th birthday, and she died because she fell and she broke a hip.
Wow.
And this is another big cause of death for older people is the ability to, recover from something like that, but also to have the bone strength. And it's scary for me because my grandmother was definitely not getting up and running miles and doing marathons. She actually lived on a farm, your traditional grass-fed farmer, chickens. They were like, she did the things. She was like living the ancestral life until like, conventional whatever took over, and she started eating, margarine. And then it was like, don't do that now, Grandma.
No.
Like, stop with the margarine. You're okay.
Real
you
butter.
Doing it right. You were doing it right. But she, she's a picture of health and staying active, and she lived on her own when she was almost 90, and then she fell and broke a hip. So I think that, I think we're on the verge of a growing crisis for this generation as this generation changes and gets older, because I did a deep dive on like bone density at some point and how different exercise modalities impact bone density. And unfortunately, don't kill the messenger, but like, unfortunately, high mileage cyclists and runners had the least bone density because it's just you're leaching minerals from your bones. Your body is eating your muscle. So what we need is an actual load in order to encourage the bone to uptake calcium. So you can't just take calcium and expect it to be taken and deposited into bone. No, it's no different than like you eating protein and now you're building muscle. Like you have to actually give your body a load to encourage it then to get stronger and start depositing minerals, and or with your muscles, it's muscle protein synthesis. So a stronger frame, stronger bones, stronger balance, like, or better balance, like all of that stuff gets so important as we age. And that's a huge, huge benefit of exercise. And I think that's it. Besides all the, the normal things of you might feel better and have better energy and all those things. Like those are those big things that we can use or, just consider when we're trying to motivate ourselves to say, because like not everybody has a ton of motivation to, like this morning, I did not really want to lift. Like I just was tired and I'm just not feeling it. Like, my husband and I are kind of in a fight and I'm like, I don't want to be around you. Like, I was just in a mood. I was in a mood, but it wasn't that I couldn't do it. I was just in a mood. Right. And so, but I think about it's not me killing myself in the gym and punishing myself, right? It's okay. I can do 20 minutes. I can handle 20 minutes. Let's get like an upper body lift in. Let's do something. And let's just like make sure that you're not in pain throughout the weekend. Like, cause lifting actually decreases my chronic pain. Let's make sure you're not in pain. Let's make sure, you're doing the things to improve your bone density and improving insulin sensitivity. Like let's just set yourself up for a weekend of success. And that's what worked.
Sure. And a lot of the time, once you start doing it,
You feel better.
you're like, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think is really important that you talk about, and we kind of hit on this a little bit, but I want to ask you this question. So with our next generation, how can we teach them to have a healthier relationship with food in their bodies?
Yeah, this is a really hard one. So I have a daughter who's in elementary school and I have a son who's in preschool. So I just try to have very casual conversations with him, but it's more so no, it's really important for both of them, to be honest. But I'm always kind of evaluating how am I speaking not only about myself, but about their bodies and the foods that they're eating. So this is really what it all comes down to is how are you speaking about food? How are you speaking about their body? How are you speaking about your body? And a lot of times, I grew up in a household that was constant self-deprecation, but also tearing yourself down physically. Like, oh, I wish I could just get rid of this. And, a lot of us grew up in dieting households.
Oh yeah.
And so, and that's impacts your children. So we have to be able to, even if we don't believe it yet, speak positively about ourselves and speak positively about our bodies every chance we can within reason. And try to speak about our bodies in a way that is uplifting ourselves and really appreciating all that it can do, as opposed to, well, wow, I have really great, oh yeah, look at my stomach, it looks good, or oh, get your attention off of your physical features and instead focus on all the things that it can do. So do that for yourself, but then also do that for your children. So with my daughter, it's hard because you have family members and you have people
there's so many
want to make comments. They want to make comments about what they're eating. They want to feed them things. They want to make comments about their body. Oh my gosh, look at your cute little waist.
Yes.
No, don't say that to my daughter. I do not want her thinking that her waist is cute or little, because if and when that changes and she goes through puberty, she's going to think, oh man, I'm not worthy anymore. So what are we doing when we're telling kids and talking to them about their body size? And I want to educate my child on, yes, how she can take care of her body, and yes, how food, make the connection between food and how she feels and food and what she can do. But I don't want her to be constantly thinking about how does food impact my body. She's going to get that plenty from the world and all that stuff. She doesn't need it from me. So my goal as a mom, and I think what moms can really do, is take a step back and make sure that you're speaking only positive things about yourself. You're not tearing yourself up. Watch what you say specifically about, well, I've got to work this off in the gym tomorrow, or gosh, I was so bad for eating that. All that language, you've got to work on it and get it out of your vocabulary. Say it in your head. Don't say it out loud.
Cheating, right?
Yes, I'm cheating, or
meal.
I've been good today.
Yeah,
I've been good, so I'm going to have this. you're not you know, food doesn't need to be a reward. Sometimes it's fun
Or a
rewarding
punishment.
situations,
Right.
but like you don't have to earn it. So another thing that's a little controversial that I still am dealing with too is our children don't need to earn certain foods like dessert. So a lot of times parents are using dessert as punishment, as like you hit your sister, so you're not getting dessert.
You're not going to get ice cream today.
That's
Yeah,
true.
no.
And so what that message is that you were bad, so you don't get food. And you don't get this kind of food because this food is like a reward. And so you don't get it, which is, we're just reinforcing those ideals of morality and good and bad food and all that stuff. Discipline your kid, great, but you know, don't bring food into it. You don't need to do that. And a lot of times I've been attempting this with my son, which is we'll talk about what his dessert is going to be before dinner. Sometimes I'll bring it out during dinner, and it's usually small. I mean, I keep things in the house that I would eat and I want my kids to eat. I don't have, you know, things in the house. It's fine. That's another thing. Like, only bring the things in your house that you're really okay with your kid eating with dinner. So, you know, we have these little cookies or something, and he was like, he'll get all wrapped up in, you know, well, I want the cookie. And I'm like, cool, I'll bring it out. So then he'll eat the cookie and then he'll just finish his dinner. It's not a big deal to, you know, we haven't made it a big deal. He's not then eating a cookie and then it's ruining his dinner. It's just a part of the meal. And so and that's been working really well for him, because, you know, kids like to enjoy food. I want them to enjoy food, but I also want them to understand that, you know, food impacts your body in specific ways. So there are ways to have that conversation. But honestly, when they're young, they do not care about that. They don't want you to talk about.
It's so true.
Here's how this, you know, beef liver, you know, I don't even tell him I'm giving him beef liver. I'm like, let me hide. How can I hide this? Right. But like, here's how this like grass-fed beef is really good for you. It's going to give you strong bones. They're like, what? I don't care.
They look at me like I'm nuts when I tell them.
I don't care. I don't care. I'm 5 years old. I don't even really understand the concept of the sky. Like,
They're like, Mom, if you talk about the gut one more time.
Please stop talking about the gut. So I think age appropriate conversations is really important right now. For my daughter, when we are at people's houses, she'll say, oh, my stomach hurts. And I'm like, you know what, Bug? That's probably because we had some of this and it just didn't really agree with your system.
Resonate with
we just have to think about that moving forward, how we want to engage with certain foods, you know, and how they make us feel. And she's in gymnastics, which I think every kid should be in some sort of sport at some point, because it teaches them so much about body awareness, but also how things interact with their body. And, you know, I'll say, hey, we've got to make sure that we're eating right, you know, right after your workout and right after you train. And, you know, we've got to make sure that we set your training up for success, but we don't want to eat certain things because you're going to be flipping upside down and that's not really going to sit well.
You might boof, you know?
Right? So I like having these really neutral conversations where we can set our kids up for success, but we're not teaching them that's bad for you, shouldn't have that, or you need to earn your dessert, or, you know, already giving them this complex. They're going to get it from everywhere else. And, you know, it's okay too to stop people from making comments on your kids' bodies. Like if somebody's going to, you know, say something to your child, set the boundary. Please do not make comments about my child's body.
I've had to do that
while I am
it's
in their presence.
Family. Yeah.
You can take me aside afterwards and make a comment if you really feel like you need to get that out, but otherwise don't make it in front of my child. So making body comments, good and bad food, it's very simple, but the main thing you can do is be the best example.
Yeah, so true. How you talk about yourself is everything. Yeah.
It really is.
And one thing, just like with my kids are a little bit older. So like my youngest is 8, my oldest is 13. And my youngest loves sugar, you know, but there's only so many different kinds of sugar, like fruit and stuff I keep in the house, but he would be a fruitarian if I would let him. So I just say, listen, I want you to have a little bit of protein and then you can eat the whatever. And he doesn't get upset. Like he understands that like the protein is going to help you to feel better. I just don't want you to eat a bunch of fruit by itself or whatever, you know, Simple Mills cookies or whatever they are, you know, or something I've made. I'm like, let's have a little bit of protein, then we'll have this. And it's not like I'm saying this is bad at all. I'm just kind of amping up the good points of the protein. And they're like, okay, I got to get my protein. And then I'm going to have that. And I think that that's okay. Like that works for us. And they don't feel bad at all about what they eat or anything like that.
Yeah. One thing I will note too, boys are different than girls and every kid's different. So you just have to kind of like figure it out. But I will drop it in there when my daughter's still weird. Kids are weird about protein. It just they would be
like why?
Like
why?
Really,
and I'm the opposite.
I know.
It's and it's not to say that they're not going to grow up and come to you. Your kids are going to know you're an expert, and they're going to say, okay, I don't feel good, or I want to be better at baseball or whatever. And they're going to come to you when they're an adult and they're making better decisions. But I think it's kind of normal for kids to want to, trend towards more sweet stuff. They're doing a lot. They usually are running around like crazy.
Yep.
And I like, sometimes my daughter will be like, I'm hungry again. And I'm like, well, that's because you didn't eat your protein. Like I gave you a meal and you chose not to eat it. And so like, I don't say like, you need to eat your food, but if she chooses not to eat it, then I'm like, you had the option to eat. Like that. This is why you're hungry. And you just ate the little rice on the side and not the protein that I gave you. So that's why. And I give her protein that she likes and that she will eat. Sometimes she chooses not to. So then I put it in the fridge and I pull it back out and I give it to her when she's hungry.
Here you go, honey.
So true. You're like, oh, you're hungry now? Okay, good. Well, I saved this for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
This has been another point of contention, by the way, total side note, because my husband will eat. My husband is like, could probably eat 4,000 calories a day.
Like garbage disposal. He's our
energy needs. Yes.
Mine's the garbage disposal too.
Oh my gosh. And so he'll eat everything. And I'm like, she didn't
Saving
eat it.
that.
And this is the thing. I was going to save it for her. So when she came and told me she was hungry, I was going to bring it out and you ate it. And now I have to make something else. So it's like,
I feel you on that.
Like,
I know.
Wait a second. You screwed up my parenting moment.
Oh, that's so cute. It's so true. Oh, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge about this topic. We really haven't talked about it yet. This has been really good.
Well, so you guys are great. I love that you guys are together.
I know.
It's like I get to hang out with two girlfriends. Like it's so fun. I like
it really
when you
is
have three
fun.
people on Zoom. It's just but like you guys are great. You guys have such a great connection, and that's such a blessing. Like to love who you're working with and like click well and all that. So I love it.
I'm trying to get her and her husband to move here.
Becky's going to look at real estate
for them. I found you a place. Tell Chris to start packing.
Uproot your whole family.
That's funny. I love it.
Well, Noelle, where can people find you?
So my website is coconutsandkettlebells.com. I do a lot of things. I do post recipes. It's all allergy friendly, so we don't do gluten. And a lot of stuff is dairy free for us. So it's all allergy friendly stuff. And then I am on Instagram sometimes at Coconuts and Kettlebells. And I do have a book, Coconuts and Kettlebells, that has some recipes and like a workout program and stuff like that.
Your book is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a good book. So
and your podcast.
Yeah, your podcast.
Oh, yeah. The podcast. Yeah. Well-Fed Women is the podcast, which Dr. Becky's been on multiple times. But yeah.
It's good. It's a good podcast.
It is. It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on. We had a great time, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. And if you love this episode, please leave a review. It only takes a couple minutes. And you can find out more about us on drbeckycampbell.com. And you can follow us over at Instagram on @HealthBabesPodcast, @Dr. Becky Campbell, and @Dr. Crystal Hone. Have an amazing day.